Black August.
Nicole Kali loves a gritty, unapologetically Black punk band. Maafa is that and so much more. Flora Lucini is a powerful presence in New York hardcore music and a great person.
Thank you.
From their bass shredding to their thoughtful lyricism and vocals and Afro-progressive Maafa. Welcome, Flora.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Nicole. Black Rockers United,
Black
everybody.
Rockers United, absolutely.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Flora? What is empowering and going on in your life?
Whew, cha. Everything is good. I have my health. I have my life. Got my parents. We actually just had a death in the family this morning because of COVID. And a lot of our friends and some of our band members also lost friends and fam this week and last week. It's been a very bittersweet and very just weird time of trying to be grateful for what is still here and what you have, but also understand that there's a lot of grieving and mourning and loss that's going on right now. And it's been going on for a while, you know. Personally, I've been dealing with a lot of grief for the past 2 years. Last year was something else.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, it was really rough. We lost my Uncle Trey from the Unabombers last year, which is that little yellow shirt back there.
This is Black history, and he's part of that.
Yeah, he is. The Unabombers, shout out to Uncle Greg and to Forrest and to Calvin, were a band that has been around for about 20 years, I think, or more.
I think so.
And from back home, I'm originally from the DMV area. Yeah.
Nice, DMV, born and bred.
Yes, I love it. And Uncle Trey's been around me since I started coming around to hardcore and punk in DC, which is about 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
So that's a heavy loss for everybody. We're all going to feel that forever. So, yeah.
Black punks and Black unity, even through the struggles and the hardship.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's only possible together,
Absolutely. We all we got, like we say all the time in our emails.
And I love you, Flora.
And I love you.
I know it's hard to still create, but I'm here for you. And we're all
Thank you so much. Thank you for holding space. I appreciate it. I love that we're having this. It feels like this new renaissance, like a new Black punk renaissance that's happening. I don't know if that makes sense.
It is. No, it makes 100%.
It feels good. It feels really good to see the things happening now that I only ever dreamed of happening. And there's some things that are happening now that I couldn't have dreamt of,
100%. Like what? What example?
Me personally, it's just with our residencies, Maafa Reblematic in the 1865, we've had a monthly residency at Max Fish. And I think it's been 2 years now. Time goes by so fast.
Incredible.
It is awesome. Just being able to once a month go to that venue and it feels like you're going to church or you're going to a cookout or you're going to something that's just for you and everybody's Black and brown and our other friends, of course, everyone's welcome, but it just feels like centered, like it's centering us. We want to celebrate with everybody we love, but this is just one little thing where it's like the focus is on us for a couple hours,
Exactly.
And in this idea, in this context of safe spaces, it's really important that that's happening. And that's something I didn't grow up. I'll be in hardcore and punk for next year will be 20 years that I've been in the scene. Yeah. And I'm thinking back on it, and it's only in the past 5 years I've had for real community of this level that's predominantly Black and brown and LGBTQIA, etc. I definitely have a lot of friends and family back home in DC that are Black and brown, BIPOC, or that we grew up together. They're still in the scene to this day, predominantly Black women, which I'm very blessed. Black women got me into hardcore. Black women have sustained me in hardcore.
we do it. Each other. We keep each other in the scene, and we make each other feel seen and known,
Absolutely. Oh, that was good. Make each other feel seen, because invisibility is a thing. That is real. Absolutely. But this is the first time they'll come up here from DC to New York just so we can all hang out for the shows and stuff. We're traveling, then there's Richmond, and then there's Philly and, you know, Virginia. I never thought this would happen. So I'm just like, invite me to all your shows, please.
Regardless of COVID, it's there, but we're still rocking. We're still
right.
punking.
That's
we're
right.
still doing this together, you know?
Because if you think about punk and hardcore, especially traditionally speaking, true hardcore and punk, in my opinion, is something that really thrives under pressure. The more you try to erase us, the more you try to, as a whole, like all of us, the more you try to oppress us or keep us from having access to certain things, will be able to thrive. Really, we're gonna always find a way and make a way, which is why being Black and punk is almost redundant.
I've been saying the same. Thank you. I've been saying the same thing. You got it. You explained it so much. We are revolutionary just by being here.
Right. Like this concept of DIY. I'm like, that ain't no new concept. We've been doing that. Like, what? How do you think I got here? Like,
thank you. What are you doing here with Lena Dawes was real. Right. Like, what are you doing here? Like, I made this.
Shout out to Lena. That's the homie. I love her.
Amazing.
That's another thing about this time period that I didn't think would happen. I mean, I was going to find a way to make it happen one way or the other. But I'm just grateful that it's en masse now. Is meeting my sheroes and heroes and people that I'm looking up to, and not only meeting them, but them immediately with no hesitation, not just including me into the spaces that they inhabit, but also like, oh, that's my colleague. Oh, you're going to play bass now for this band. And it's this powerful healing moment of growing up with a lot of internalized misogyny, from the force to hang out with a lot of guys because all the girls I wanted to really, really be friends with, maybe we're not there yet. Everyone's on their own journey, and I'm learning to heal from that. It's fine. I'm okay. Okay, I'm not mad, I guess. But especially with Black women during like the late 90s and early 2000s, it's really hard to went to predominantly Black schools my whole life. And it's really hard sometimes to just walk in with pink hair and a choke collar and like agnostic front t-shirt, you know, and just be like, hey, everybody, we're all gonna get along. You know what I mean? And so there was a lot of that growing up. But luckily, my first day of high school, 2 Black girls that were into alternative rock and metal came straight up to me. Oh, really? You're here now? It was just us before you, but now you're one of us. And I was like, okay. They took me to my first real hardcore show, because up until then, through middle school, I was going to pop punk and just whatever I could get, just to figure out what is this, you know. It's the ska shows, and I'm sorry, I love y'all. Y'all can cancel me if you want to, drag me on Black Twitter. It's something else. Ska is okay. We did that. Okay. Okay.
I did that, Flora. So
no
Black
shade.
girls literally brought you into it.
Yeah, they were into alternative rock stuff, and I was too at the time. I was only like 14.
Oh, word.
You know, I didn't really know what I was into. I was just like, is it aggressive? Is it violent? Is someone screaming? I'm there. You know.
Got it.
Oh, this is, you know, alternative new metal, and I was like, I don't care, new, old, whatever. Is we get mad? Is we angry?
We so, mad? Okay. I mean, I'm feeling that energy. Let's go. All right.
And it was great. I mean, they took me to some of my first hardcore shows. Most of those shows were straight edge hardcore shows on college campuses, because the irony of DC at that time was that there weren't that many all ages clubs.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it's just like, okay, Minor Threat did not spend all that money sending us to that good school for us to come over here with
with this BS, with this gentrification.
Right. All ages, you know, and it was awesome. So straight edge hardcore shows, I can't remember any of the bands. And they were at American University and University of Maryland.
Nice.
Shout out to UMD and WM.
Oh, UMBC Radio, they be blasting the rock.
University of Maryland College Park. Okay, College Park campus. Thank y'all. That University of Maryland campus, my bands have played there several times, and it was just awesome. It was a great time period. It really was. But Black girls got me into punk and hardcore.
100%.
Yeah.
So when did you first hear and play music overall, since they were your foray into hardcore?
Well, the funny part, I don't think many people know about that. I was born in Brazil, And my parents and my uncles and most of my aunties and everybody, they're all professional jazz musicians. So my dad's a bassist and my mom plays tenor sax. And that's what they've been doing for a living since before I was born.
Okay.
And then we came to the United States, and my dad went to Howard, studied jazz there with my uncles, and my mom went to UDC, studied jazz there. So I grew up first singing because I'm loud. And I'm okay with that. And then playing piano and saxophone. And then that was 1997 probably, after No Doubt. Don't drag me, y'all. I feel differently today. I know Gwen is she. Whoo,
I know, but that was a lot of our. That was a lot of our intro into that style. Like a lot of Black girls, we love Gwen Stefani. That's how we started.
What? I made wallpaper, okay, in my room. I was like, yes, pink hair. I want all of this. Whew. So Gwen and them came out with that one album, Tragic Kingdom, and I liked it. It was cool, but I really liked Beacon's 3 collection, which was their independent release right before it.
Nice.
And when I heard the bass line to open the gate up, that first song, I was like, you can do that in this genre on the radio? Y'all are really play. Like Tony Canal can play. And then I turned to my father and I was like, Daddy, is this the instrument you play? He was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that now. And that was it.
Oh, beautiful. Bam. From there.
Between my father and Tony Canal, they're responsible for me being a bassist.
Beautiful. And it was jazz and it was punk. And I've been telling people for a long time that overlap is where a lot of artists find their stars.
Absolutely.
Jazz and punk and ska, because there's so many similarities.
Absolutely. And growing up that way is definitely interesting. I started gigging professionally, I guess you could call, when I was very young, and to try to get my feet wet in the scene. I'm coming from the industry. I'm coming from jazz and Afro-Brazilian music, and, having to deal with watching my parents and their friends deal with labels and touring and all this other stuff. And there's no real way to rebel against musician parents like that unless you're going to go for a genre that only uses 3 chords. So that's what I did. And that definitely pissed him off enough for me to feel satisfied. So the irony of it being so simple at the time, the bands I was listening to, like The Exploited and stuff like that, the irony of it is that I'm constantly reading and sight reading these charts, and everything's so complicated, and you have to shed, and you got to know your time signatures and syncopation and blah, blah, blah. Then you get to punk and it's just like, but can you feel this? I'm using 2 chords from a major scale in standard tuning. You're welcome. This is the best song I've ever heard in my entire life,
The jam.
This is the jam forever.
And it's simple and it gets you to the heart. You don't have to decipher it. It's just, it's a wave, and you're just like won by it. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is very classic and timeless. A lot of songs, especially for bands like The Exploited, lyrics, songs like Fuck the USA and Alternative and things like that. You can dissect it for it to be and apply to things that are happening today, and throughout, especially when Bush was in office, that was a big thing for us, revisiting 2 weeks. It's going to be the 15th anniversary of Katrina. A lot of my friends that I became friends with during that time had come up from New Orleans to DC because of Katrina. So,
we go through Black August because it's here and we're living it.
We are.
Maafa and its meaning to the African diaspora will never leave us. And when you explore our lived experiences like Katrina through punk, can you tell us about that, Flora?
About the lived experience?
Yeah. When you take Maafa, that word, how do you personify it in punk?
It's a great question. Thank you. That's loaded. I'll try to condense. Well, the word Maafa is something that I kind of stumbled upon in college, and I didn't really know too much. In all disclosure, I didn't know too much about the word at first. And I had this amazing mentor and teacher, Professor Dr. Lawrence Watson. Shout out to him in Berklee College of Music. And we had a really great conversation about how a lot of Pan-African scholars of the 90s and the 80s and the 70s would take words that are from different traditional and native languages of East and West Africa and kind of apply them to things throughout the diaspora. And Marimba Ani was one that I later found out was her. Honestly, I'm gonna be keeping 100% because it's just family right now.
Yeah.
I heard that word. I didn't know what it was. I was like, what does that mean? And he was like, oh, it's Swahili for greatest disaster, terrible occurrence. That is the best metal name ever.
It is.
That's got to be a band. Greatest disaster. I was so psyched. And then I learned what it really meant and why we use it the way we do, or not all of us, but a lot of us use it that way. And I'll be honest with you, since we're talking about lived experiences, I hesitated to name the band Maafa at first because of how politically different, not in alignment I am with Marimba Ani in terms of our very queer and trans Black lives and our very Black feminists and just not here for the cishet bullshitterousness way that I am and that my community is. And then I was like, well, that's brilliant. Take the name Maafa, since we do use it in context to refer to the middle passages and what's happened then. If anybody should be using that term, if anybody needs to be using that term, it's the rest of us. If you're not talking about all of us, then what are you really, you're not really talking about anything, you know, not that I want to hear. So I still struggle with that a little bit. Is that okay? Whatever. But it's a learning process, and that's my intention behind it. And I think that's the lived experience. I'm not a trans woman, for example. I'm not a dark-skinned, unambiguous Black woman, you know. So I'm not about to sit here and speak on experiences that I haven't lived. And I think what I can do is go into spaces that don't even know anything about us. Predominantly punk and hardcore. So those four dudes from the Bad Brains, that's it. Yeah. I only get one band at a time, and it's the Bad Brains. Be happy, sit your ass down. That's how they be dealing with us, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
So in a lot of those spaces, I feel like bands like ours, like Reblematic and Universe Ignore Her, things like that, Winterwolf, we inhabit those spaces to show you many things, is to say many things, but for me predominantly is that we're not monolithic. Now that's not a original idea of mine, of course. I feel like part of having privilege is using my platform to kind of start dismantling some of these ideas just by inhabiting them a certain way, or by providing access to those spaces where other people who do have certain experiences that I don't can feel more safe and more centered. For me, I might get dragged for this too. Woo, I'm doing a lot today. For me, I feel like inclusivity is dope and that's cool and yes, you know, but I want to be centered. And not just me. I want to learn something. I want to learn about Black experiences I haven't heard about. I want you to be like, I was like, we do that? We live there? We go through that? I want to walk into a space that has to do with hardcore and punk and feel like everything else is not like it's an afterthought, but I don't have to code switch and then feel some kind of way and let you do that one joke that you know ain't right, or bring that one guy. Didn't we just talk about him and say he wasn't shit? You know what I mean? Or what's that band you're wearing? We've been canceled them back in '94. You know, whatever it is. I want to be able to lock into a space and not have to explain things and not have to go, ugh.
There you go.
I guess. And look around and everybody looks like me or my family, or families that I know are Black, but I haven't seen before. Teach me something, learn me something, you know?
There you go.
And I feel like Max Fish has been the closest I've ever gotten to that in my lifetime. For sure, yes. Shout out to Quinn and the homies. Yes.
Oh, you go, Max Fish. Hold it on for Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brooklyn
hardcore is killing it.
Everybody right now. Brooklyn versus everybody. It's amazing. So I feel like those lived experiences are not going to be the same as the other. An important thing is for Maafa, for me, there's several reasons that I want Maafa to accomplish before I die. And one of those things is to create a space. I'm not going to be the first, and I'm hoping to God I'm not the last. The people who are watching us have this interview right now, especially younger folks, feel like the band that they've hesitated to start, that they go out and be like, I'm going to do it right now. You know, that's to me is if I can get that to happen, I'm good.
I love that answer, Flora.
Thanks.
Do you think we're in the era now with Black Rockers United and us finally making that synergy scene that people will tap into that collective energy and, oh, like something is happening. This Black punk renaissance is going.
Absolutely. I definitely feel that way. And I feel like even I was shocked because, you know, you're doing stuff and then you stop for a second, look around. I was like, oh, we really did something. Like that really happened. And I just actually did an interview a few days ago with a Creature from Reblematic. We were both interviewed for something, and they wanted to talk about what we're doing in our bands. You know, Reblematic's coming out with an album in a few weeks. And so we're hanging out and we're talking to our friend who's interviewing us. They said something really interesting. Like, I just want to, you know, talk to you guys and ask you guys questions about the scene that y'all are building. And people keep saying that. And I'm just like, what scene? Where are we going? How come I didn't get the invitation? What scene is this? I thought it was just hardcore. I'm at Brooklyn Bazaar hanging out. What do you mean, scene? Okay, I understand what they mean. I'm super flattered and I'm super honored that that's happening organically. But then I also want to encourage people to, especially non-Black people, to really reflect on, am I acknowledging that you're doing something different or that you're doing something that is expanding a definition instead of redefining? Because that's what I'm not about to do, is redefine. I want to expand the definition, because redefining to me has an implicit erasure, and I'm not here for it. Or am I othering Maafa, Reblematic, these bands out of a space that they're more entitled to than I am, that they created, that their ancestors built?
There you go.
And it's like, just because I'm not sitting here with pigtails and a bandana, which I do sometimes, okay, and a sports bra, and I'm two-stepping, and everyone in my band is white here at all these hardcore festivals, and every song is about betrayal and my crew and beating people up and whatever. Does that mean we're less hardcore?
No.
Because I'm showing you through my band that this is the rhythm you're meant to play. That's what it's supposed to sound like. What a 6/8 actually. No, I'm just joking. But
possible. No, it's true. It's true.
You know, I want to make sure that the people who have access to us that are not Black and brown understand that. Reflect upon yourself, not just with my band, with all of us. Am I really saying they're different, they're like this, they're like that, because I really feel like they're doing something completely different? Or am I othering them out because I still believe that hardcore and punk is white, it's male, it's straight, and it's this, and it's this kind of beat, these amount of minutes, etc.
It's true. What is people's concept of punk? Well, you would find that many people, without thinking, it's white, the default. And you're building a scene that is centering us. Right. So it is different, but it's different in the way that we've wanted, that we've been waiting for, you know? Right. So it's home now, you know? This is
Ooh, I love that, home.
Yeah.
Like finally being able to be what it was always.
Thank you.
You know, you didn't get those grooves in New York hardcore, and certain bands didn't just grow up with that groove out of nowhere. It just fell out the backyard in the middle of, you know, Little Italy.
Yeah.
New York. Yeah, you learned it somewhere. You heard it somewhere. You grew up in the hip hop generation. So you heard a lot of sampling of music, and you heard different types of beats and different things. You didn't just show up and decide that boom, ga, boom, ga, boom, ga. Oh yeah, we got that out of nowhere. That came from church. Shut up. I'm so sick of them.
Thank you.
Sick of it.
It's the colonial forgetting. We have to forget these roots so that we can reclaim the history ourselves. So I wanted to talk about your piece, Afoshe Oya Lashe, from Nago Kandoble, right?
Yeah, wow. I know I'm going to sound like Ryan, but you really did your homework.
Thank you.
The best ever.
You know, your family, and I find this kinship with Black Brazil, because any Black rocker to me, again, is like someone Afro-descended that says, I am here. You will listen and you'll respect me on this path.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that, Flora?
I definitely believe that. I feel a kinship with a lot of people, and I'm also not afraid to say that not all skin folk or skin adjacent folk are there, you know? And I think those folks, I have a lot of compassion I have a lot of patience and I have a lot of love in general. But if anybody's worthy of that more than anything, it's my people, you know? And I think everyone's on their different journeys. And I'm always very afraid of perpetuating this monolithic idea being placed on Black and punk too, you know, because I've been seeing some things that are kind of make me go, I don't know about that. Like tagging bands as Afro-punk who have never even played the festival or have nothing to do with the festival or don't want to have anything to do with the festival, you know, today at least. And using the term Afro-punk as like a genre or descriptor for bands that have nothing to do with it.
It is problematic.
It's very problematic. It's also another reason why I chose to call this Afro-progressive hardcore, because I'm like, I really don't want to give you space to try to define it. You do you, personally, but I'm going to let you know what it is I want to do. Black and punk and this kind of stuff, these terms could be used in ways to highlight and acknowledge things that have been erased historically in this community, but it can also be used to, again, keep us in. Society's been telling you this is how to be Black, and if you're not like this, you're not really Black. Now in the punk rock, this is how to be a Black punk, and if you're not like this, then you're not really a Black punk.
Yeah, and you see that the terminology is a big part of how that's defined. You're trying to make sure that you don't get it twisted and no one else gets it twisted either.
Absolutely. Because I overthink everything, just so everybody knows, and we're very clear on the same page. I am still overthinking the term Afro for the band, because I'm like, but then it's diasporic, and like, but what if it's problematic, and you know, and I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that, because I'm thinking, I'm considering, I'm trying to do for others what hasn't been done for me, frankly. The only people, I don't really care what anybody thinks about what I do, but the only people who I'll actually stop and actually go, maybe I should reflect on that, is if it's coming from my own folks. And that's what that kinship really feels. And that's why this community and these bands and everything that we're doing is so important for us. Really support each other. I don't have to like your band. You're not required or obligated to like anything Maafa does at all. You can listen to this music and be, that's trash, I hate it, but Flora's cool. I don't like 90% of what I hear. I'm very picky. I'm very picky when it comes to music. I hear your guitar is even a quarter out of tune, I'm canceled. It's over.
Love it, Flora.
Can't do it. I can't. But I don't care if I don't like your music. I don't care if I think you're terrible musician. I could think the worst about your music. As long as it's not problematic, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show up for you. I'm going to create space for you. I'm going to support you, because then there's 10 other people that have never heard you before that is going to love you. 10 other Black kids that are going to see you perform and now I can do it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just because they saw you.
Exactly. And, you know, I hate this comparison, but it's real, and it's coming up in my heart right now to speak on it. But I don't see other groups of people in these communities tear each other down and do that to each other. There are so many crappy all-white hardcore and punk bands. I mean, they sound the fuck terrible, like real bad. Like, how did you make it this far? A whole festival hired you?
The whole DMV area.
Right, but I don't see them going back. You're not really punk because you guys play like this or whatever. No. And I see that happening a lot in Black punk spaces and brown spaces. I'm over it.
Okay.
Frankly, you know, so I feel like kinship and being able to support. I don't have to like what you do, but I'm going to support your right and your protection, which is mandatory for you to do it. And that's how I feel like that should be what we should all be doing. But that's just me.
Thank you. Flora, that's so like insightful. It builds on what Samantha, Ghetto Songbird, was saying yesterday.
Have a moment to just praise Grace Jones for Samantha Holland's Ghetto Songbird.
Like, Black rock is alive and well in her.
She's phenomenal.
And they said that there's room for all of us to shine, and the stars don't conquer and divide. They just do that. They shine. And I was like, wow. Like, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
There's room for all of us to do our thing without feeling like there is competition. And 2020 is going to have to depend on that. It's actually coming together in solidarity, like survival, love.
Yeah. And that's really cool that you said that, because sense of competition is something that I tend to argue with a lot with some of my friends, you know, because they're like, we got to do this and we got to do that. I was like, I ain't got to do nothing but stay Black and live. That's all I have to do.
Empowering to hear.
You know, I'm like, I'm divinely protected in my opinion. That's how I see the world. You know, I'm very spiritual. There's been many things that have happened in my life where I should not be here. And I'm like, well, if I'm here, that means that something got to be done, you know. And I know my ancestors, you know, if you don't get your shit together, wake up and go take a shower, do your hair, and get to work. You right, you know.
Right. Like, damn, I'm your wildest dream. I have to do this
Right.
for
I was
you.
like, I gotta do this for you, Auntie. I know. I'm going. All of that is, you know, part of that mission. And I feel that it's really interesting that you talked about unity and being there for one another, because if you look at the community that I'm a part of right now, that we're kind of rebuilding or I don't know, this Renaissance thing that I'm calling it. This thing of ours.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
This thing of ours. And so all these bands that are coming out and we're all like hanging out and playing shows together. Like Reblematic and Maafa have the same drummer. Shout out to Ramsey Jones. We also share Biz, who's also my drummer in the 1865 where I play bass. And you know,
so incredible.
It's like bloop, 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 bloop.
Energy.
And we just, some of it's necessity too, you know, because we need people that can actually play certain types of music and hardcore and punk at the same time well, you know. So it's amazing to me from going from one person back home in a community of punk rockers that if I talked about djembe, they're like, you mean bongos? You know what I mean? Girl, let me tell you something. One time in Long Island, I'm not going to shout, listen, you know who you are. I know you watching. You're wrong. Okay. Shame on you. Okay. Somebody described us as a reggae band with bongos.
They're wrong for that. They are wrong.
Interview over.
That.
They said this because Maafa had one song. We have one song called Libation that has one like little itty bitty breakdown that goes into reggae out of a bajillion.
Wow.
Straight up hardcore song.
They just honed in on that one little part. And like,
they were like, oh, it's a reggae band. Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
They got
They
their
go
life.
cover Bob Marley. And then recently I went to a show with some of our friends in Winterwolf, and there was this guy there. I don't know who he is. I don't care. A white man. And he's never seen Winterwolf before. And I'm standing there minding my magical black business. He's right here. And we're about to watch his band. And he turns to me, a complete and total stranger, because they love this. They just love to do it. Turn to me out of nowhere and goes, oh man, they're giving me some like Living Color vibes. The band hadn't even played yet. They're a whole horror punk screamo type band. Garage noise, horror punk, screamo mixed together is Winterwolf and some other shit too.
Right on.
And this dude goes Living Color. Living Color.
Loaded statements. Loaded statement.
We all we got. That's the end of
that's
my.
all we got, yo. Like on the real, because we're the only ones that seem to be giving each other that nuance when we hear each other play. Like we don't automatically put like a framework on each other the way that other people do when they see us. They're just like, you fit the mold of this band that's come before. I think we give each other more leeway with that, you know?
Absolutely. And when we do compare, if we do compare to something, I feel more inclined to trust it because I feel like we've actually listened to the music and actually heard some, oh yeah, they must be using the same pedal or whatever, blah, 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 you know?
Yeah.
It's not just because you're Black and you're in a band, you can be one of three.
Thank you for bringing that up, Flora, because we were just talking on the admin roundtable for Brew about, do you think we're finally at the point where rock is as regular for Black community as other genres? And I was like, no, and that's largely because of other people's comments, but that's also us too.
Right.
It's our expectations of each other in that framework of the most popular genres for Black people have been, you know, typically not rock.
Right. Absolutely. It's interesting that we bring that up today because just a few days ago, one of the young ladies that I grew up with is a Black woman through high school that we used to go to all the hardcore shows and still do go to shows together today. Hi, Biagi. We're talking about something we've never said to each other. It was really beautiful because we just kind of living and going to shows and stuff. We never actually sat down to say to each other, now we're in our 30s, what it was like the first time we met each other and saw each other in a predominantly white school, which I only lasted a year and a half in. I had to I'm sorry. I love y'all, but no, I can't.
I get it. Yeah. Do what you gotta do. Save yourself.
I can't do it. So Yaji and I were talking about it, and we sat there, and I told her what it was like to see her and her sister walking up, two beautiful young Black girls up the street where we were all hanging out with pink and blue box braids and like Janko pants and spike collars and chain wallets and their kitty shirt and like Metallica. And I'm just like,
what a mood.
What? It's a whole vibe. I'm sitting there with my like GBH cutout shirt and like hair is all purple. And we're just like, Makidada. It's like, yes.
Oh my gosh.
It was incredible. It was an amazing experience. But, you know, you're just living and going through your life. And we never got a chance to tell each other how much that was impactful. And how that's been a lifelong friendship of over 15 years now. And she said something really interesting. And she was like, you know, I've been reflecting about how badly we used to get beat up and teased and mocked and lived in a lot of violence from some of our own people in that area of DC and PG County that were not about letting us have, you know, that space to be whatever it is we're trying to figure out. And they were very violently against it oftentimes. And she said something that I have yet to like really process and unpack because it was so powerful. This whole time I've been feeling so excluded. And when we were kids, you know, feeling so excluded and so exiled away from our own people and our own community in certain regards. I never thought about maybe they felt like we turned our backs on them first. Yeah. And I said,
they did.
Right. Exactly. And it was just so brilliant and simple. And light bulb, duh. Yeah. That makes absolute sense now. You know, not for everybody. Some people were just being mean.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I get that.
But that was so profound. So I feel like we have a lot of work to do in this community to like not just normalize, but also to center and recontextualize our own narrative around this, you know. For sure.
Yeah. So Flora, how does a Maafa song in the creative process begin for you? Are there any lasting influences on your songwriting and listening tastes? Because Brew loves to hear it.
A lot. My writing process, some of the songs I wrote for Maafa that we kind of play every once in a while, like Not Your Exotic. I actually wrote Not Your Exotic when I was in high school. After listening to a Biff Naked record, which I used to love Biff Naked so much. I still do. I love her a lot. She's an amazing woman and a great survivor, and she's awesome. And so I listened to some Biff Naked and got inspired to do this punky rock and roll thing. I was in a rockabilly band at the time. Oh, it's a lot.
Band music.
I just been through a lot, man. I've been through a lot of things.
Life, and I love to hear it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I listened to that song and I just wrote Not Your Exotic. I wrote the riff and whatever. And then I saw this poem by Sahir Hamad called Not Your Exotic, Not Your Erotic. Maybe that was backwards. But that stuck with me all these years. And then finally with Maafa, like I rewrote it and took it down a few whole steps and made it into this song. I don't really have any particular like process where, okay, it's time to write a song. So I'm going to do this in that order. Okay, cool. It kind of just comes out. I wrote everything you hear with Maafa on a classical guitar because I didn't have an electric guitar. I've never really had one until recently. A lot of the songs like Deficit and Fila da Luta and things like that were originally just instrumentals that were just all different African diasporic things, like mainly Afro-Brazilian and djembe breaks, like Deficit is a djembe break in the beginning. I hear this. How does this sound with hardcore? How does this translate to hardcore and punk? Because my whole life, you know, coming from this community with my parents and the way I hear music in general, any kind of song, listening to a lot of New York hardcore growing up. I was obsessed with New York hardcore growing up. Everybody else is Discord this, and I was just like, give me that Demise demo, give me that Warzone. Hello, that shit is fire. Till this day. Give me some Indecision. Hallelujah.
So
Indecision. Yes, Indecision. I
Yeah,
believe
Myers
too,
Rep.
baby. I believe too. You right. Ooh, love Indecision. Absolutely. Listening to their music and all these hardcore bands, especially like District 9 and Everybody Gets Hurt, I'm like, wait a minute, that break, that's not no punk. That's a 6/8. That's some African shit. That's some djembe. That's some Nigerian, some Ewe. That's some this whatever. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean?
There you
That's
go.
not what that is.
There you go.
Know? Especially with certain bands that love to mix, those Castle Heights bands, they love to mix different rhythm changes really quickly. They're really good at doing that, man.
Yeah.
Going really fast, you know, circle pit stuff to a two-step, and then all of a sudden it's a sludgy, grindy kind of feel, and then back. Perfect timing live with all that energy, the way the bass was used to just spin around like a little tornado. Like,
wasn't that incredible?
It's incredible. Like, and that's the kind of stuff I grew up wishing I could have been in New York, first of all, and old enough to have walked in the door to attend. But I grew up listening to it anyway, thank God. And it's very influential in my music because Maafa, and part of my writing with Maafa is just, I want y'all to hear what I hear. So when I hear certain breakdowns, like Snapcase was a really good band that did that a lot. I'm listening to Snapcase, I'm like, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, do that with the drums again. Yes, he did it again. Yes. The whole time. Even some metalcore, even some can do that, and their writing and the way they play. I mean, I can talk about this shit all day long of just how influential some of those things are. Like right now I'm working on a cover of Shai Hulud's My Heart Bleeds the Darkest Blood. There you go. I had to sing it because I can't say it. And that song, I hear orchestration, I hear a lot of capoeira music, I hear all this stuff in it. I'm like, let's do it like this, you know? And I think Maafa is an idea that came to me out of that. Like, I want to play what I want to play, but I want you to hear what else I hear too. And let's just have fun with it, you know? For sure.
Beautiful. So who personifies like Afro-progressive hardcore with you, with Maafa? Rock that description, by the way. Yes, Flora. Progressive hardcore. So that is the 1865. That's Bad Brains. X-Ray Specs and Polystyrene. That's Steven Screamin' Jay Hawkins. So
yes. I feel like Afro-progressive hardcore is something that I just made up out of needing to feel like I have some control, even though I know I'm not going to have control over everybody else's way of seeing me. I don't want that. Just a little something like you can feel how you feel about the band, but I'm gonna let you know what I thought, you know? I think it has several meanings for me, not just musically in terms of like progressive song structures and taking complex ideas and songwriting, like with Blind Spot, having all of these odd meter intros and making it tangible to everybody and making it feel familiar, but also not so familiar. That is my goal, at least, you know,
you're achieving
with the progressive part. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. With the progressive part, and then the Afro part, you know, again, centering us, not just including us, taking back our narratives, but also let's make up some new shit. Let's come up with some new ideas of how to not just expand the definition, but also expand the possibilities of these sounds. You know, as an educator, I also feel like I try to teach that to as many folks as possible, to my private students and things, about theory. This is what I teach you, but also there's other things you can do with this. You know, it doesn't have to just be what I'm telling you. And then hardcore, because you're not about to other me out of my own shit. Frankly, you're not about to sit here and be like, oh, well, you know, I like Maafa a lot. I think you guys are just really great, just really different. You know,
no, we're hardcore.
But you know, it's really not hardcore. And I'm like, oh yeah, you want to come say that outside? You really want to say it to my face? Like, okay, come to one of our shows, come and find out.
Yeah, come and find out. Hear it for yourself and then decide.
Yeah, and the hardcore part, I struggled with that too. And even my guitar player Anthony and I will go back and forth about, we knew we didn't want to add New York hardcore on there, that has its own connotation of certain things when you're actually in the community that isn't necessarily honoring our truth. So we decided not to do that. But hardcore, having that in the title is important to me for several reasons. And one of the major reasons for that is because a lot of people want to exclude, they have this fear of change and this fear of reclaiming things, because then it's going to put you in the position to have to reflect on your own foundation and your own identity. And a lot of people are not ready to be like, well, if I don't have this identity, what am I going to replace it with? And I don't want to hear it from them what it is I'm supposed to be or what I want to do. And no one's going to tell you. You got to figure that out for yourself. But we're trying to grow and evolve, and you know what I mean? Just the spirit of it all. Like we're trying just, you know, we're trying to hold each other accountable and break generational curses and cycles. And, you know, we can't just be stuck here forever. Come on, y'all.
Yeah, evolution is the natural order of things. It's scary, but you have to go with the flow, you know.
It's terrifying.
Like Queen of the Stone Age made a song about it.
Yes, they did. For sure.
Your life matters, dear Flora. This brew joy is in itself resistance. Yeah.
Yes.
This do-it-yourself space that we have, and we're at a scary, uncomfortable yet exciting point in history. You know, like Afro-progressive art and ideology is widely known. Like Angela Davis is part of like mainstream conversation now. Pure Hell are part of mainstream conversation now.
Yeah,
how do you feel?
That's wild. That's pure hell, and people being able to. First of all, the fact that like, OK Africa made a list about Black punk bands. I'm already like, we made it, Mom. We don't have to do nothing else, you know? And then to put any of us, let alone all of us on that list, I was just, this is really happening. Like, this is really happening. Like, I remember when I was in the college I went to before Berkeley, having to explain what skinhead was to people all the time. And then my teacher being like, well, this is a great opportunity for you to do a lecture in our class. And I'm like, okay. And then I had to cut out photos of me and my friends drinking beer at soccer games and shit. And be like, this is a Black skinhead. This is Pakistani skinhead. This is Chinese, which is great. But then it's like, pay me though.
Yeah, like, that's unpaid labor to educate on
for this time of labor.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. But you know, now that was out of necessity because it was very violent when I was growing up. It was very weird. Everyone is hated. Everything is taboo. Everything is just, people with tattoos don't get jobs. People with tattoos don't, you know what I mean? I mean, you're really just, if you get tattoos, especially some of my homeboys that have tattoos on their face and their necks and their heads and everything. And I'm just like, back in the 80s and the 90s. You know? And I'm sitting there as a baby in Brazil in the 80s, just like, no. Could it be me? Could not be me. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
If I see a neck tattoo, it's a problem. That's a whole other interview, but we're gonna leave that alone. Keeping it 100. But yeah, I feel like a lot of it is. It takes a second for me to process, and it takes a second for me to like really accept that we're here now and it's happening. It's the beginning of something. What I'm afraid of sometimes is that people get mad comfortable with the we're here idea. And I'm like, no, we're not. We're not here yet. We're kind of getting there. We're starting to kind of understand that, oh, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I mean, Reblematic has her on their show, the yellow joint in the middle.
No, I was about to say, that looks like
that's Sister Rosetta. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's so important that we're all reclaiming these icons and really studying why they are icons. Why are these people famous to us and important to us? And why are they relevant today? That kind of thing is so important. I mean, why else put that on your shirt or claim it in a hashtag if you're not going to really understand how it's connected to us directly today? And I feel like a lot of that is completely new to my generation. My generation didn't grow up like that. We grew up with, and my New York friends, they tell me all the time, oh, we grew up getting beat up and called all sorts of names, and people telling us that we're listening to that kill your mother, kill your father music and white boy stuff and da 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 da. And I'm just like, it's happening everywhere. And now in our 30s, we're in our 30s. I'm in my 30s and I'm the baby of that generation. Everybody else is in their 40s and 50s, right? And they're like, well, you know, we've done this anyway, but now it's like the kids, the 21-year-olds and the 22-year-olds and so shout out to my tribe, all the young folks are coming up. They call me mom. They're like, Mom, what's Bane? And why does Some Came Running so good? I'm obsessed with Bane now. What's this? What is Undertow? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, yes.
Cool. This is the revolution. This is it.
Absolutely. And I think it's like little actions like that kind of evolve and snowball into becoming movements and then becoming the normalization of this group. I want us to never lose the necessity of keeping it underground to an extent, you know, get your credit, get what's due to you, but there's something really special about our spaces and our communities being just for us and within our control of who can and cannot come in to harm us. You know, everybody is welcome, but we need to be very vigilant about harm, in my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right, Flora. Thank you for your wisdom in that, because it's definitely about centering us, Black Rockers United. I guess a lot of people are confused about what that means because we do branch out to rock from non-Black people, but it starts with us, like you said, and it ends with us. Yeah. And it's a movement that's decentralized and not for the cloud. It's just like Black Rockers United because I see you rocking and you see me doing the same. And we uplift each other in doing that.
Absolutely.
Musical revolution and love, Flora.
Yes, Nicole.
Can you feel it?
I do, girl. I feel it in my spirit. I feel it every day. I feel it because it's not just us hanging out at shows and stuff. You know, during this quarantine, it's been really rough for me and my family, especially my family in Brazil, you know, and it's been amazing that I'm finally able to feel a little comfortable, at least going to the park with a few of my tribe kids, you know, and my friends. We just started doing that a week ago, like for just like an hour or two. And then I gotta go because I'm terrified. It's like my worst nightmare. It's the worst. It's really cool that we'll like meet up and listen to all these different types of music and talk about all this stuff and encourage each other. And then like Creature will take some of the kids to different cemeteries to visit the graves of James Baldwin and Maya Angelou or whoever, you know, they want to go visit Max Roach and talk about why they're relevant to a bunch of Black metalheads and hardcore kids and punk rockers today as musicians, as artists, as Black people, as revolutionaries, as radicals.
Creature. Oh my
right.
God.
And then I always meet up with some of the kids and we sit down and we talk about like, I just love, like, I have a text message on my phone from my nephew, Jerome of Winterwolf, that was like, Auntie, I need you to teach me everything about Riot Girl. What was Riot Girl? I got you. Because let me tell you, I have my opinions and I have my views. And so I want to make sure I give him the history. And then I also give him perspective that he can then come to his own conclusion. And I think that is incredible that that's happening. Like, we're real friends and we're real family outside of shows and hardcore and punk and coming together and doing shows is something that for people like me, you do it literally to stay alive, to get through the trauma of living, to get through all of these questions about, oh my gosh, I'm going to just die one day. What am I doing until then? Because then that's it. You know what I mean? Kind of feeling. Every day I ask myself, is what I did yesterday what I want my legacy to be if I die today? I have to. And that's also my anxiety makes me think that it's not even that deep. It's just, you know, and I'm just like, oh. So to have the support of our family and friends and to feel like I can pick up the phone and talk to Black women in my 30s now, I can just go crate digging. Like, me and Honeychild hang out all the time and we go to different record stores. We go eat at Champs, you know, and I can talk to Tamar Kali, bless her heart. She stays on my butt to make sure I get my life together. She does not play. And, you know, we can talk about so many things and she's so validating that, because she'll tell me, I'll call her to complain about something. And then she'll be like, I went through that back in this day and with this person and this happened. Like, oh, I don't feel so alone anymore. You know,
You
and that has nothing to do with being punk and hardcore. That has everything to do with just being Black women and friends.
And that consensus together.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I think that is what's really the driving force behind this. And I think that's also what's going to be the longevity for other people, is that these kids that are coming in 19, 20, 21, 22 years old are learning a different thing that I did not learn. I had to find out on my own, like many of us had to. You don't have to be in competition. You don't have to be disrespectful and rude. You don't have to be judgmental. You don't have to be arrogant. You don't have to know every single band and every demo and every cassette tape that was ever released in 1983 before your ass was even born.
Well, listen.
You know, so I'm teaching these kids. I tease them a lot about listening to some of these bands. Like, what was that one band? Ocean Avenue. What was that band?
Yellow Card.
Yellow Card.
Yellow Card.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I told them, you know, one of my girls, my baby girls, she'll be listening to the music, and I know the words. I mean, it was on the radio, and so I'll mess with them and just be like, "Turn this crap off. This isn't real hardcore. What is this? It's not anything to do with us." And they'll just start cracking up like, "Oh, mom, oh, you're so silly." Right? I'm just playing around because anybody tries to come at my children with some ridiculousness of this elitist, arrogant attitude about music and whatever. I'm like, lest you forget, you wasn't always listening to this kind of music. You didn't start here. You weren't born in this like that.
Thank you for saying that. Speaking up for the youth, because they are the future.
That's right. Absolutely.
You know, have some space for the youth. Have some patience for you.
Most definitely.
Wrapping it up now, my dear friend Flora, Black punk is heavy and is unable to be stopped because revolutionary energy moves like tides. And you bring the realness.
Thank you.
The world's not the same without you. And Brew has endless love and respect for you, Flora. We are united.
Yes, absolutely.
Stay united with us and rock on, okay?
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, love.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stay safe and please stay punk, okay?
Thank you. Oh, yes. I love that. Stay Black, stay punk, stay safe.
Black, stay punk, and stay safe.
All right.